Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. In this episode we will be talking about the next Oude Gueuze from the Toer de Geuze home box, and that will be Oude Gueuze from Hanssens Artisanaal, and as the name says, artisanal brewery. And I do have a certain connection with this Oude Gueuze, as this is the very first Gueuze that I tasted and I actually liked. I used to hate Gueuze in general, and then I met my teacher and my ex-girlfriend, and they were both huge fans of Gueuze, and they actually taught me how to taste a Gueuze, and ever since I've liked it. Now I haven't drank the Hanssens Gueuze ever since, so it's been 2 years since I had it, and I'm very curious of how I'm gonna like it now. The Hanssens brewery is a rather special story, seeing as it originated from a family quarrel. So originally they were stitched on an older brewery, started up by Petrus van Hemelrijk, or actually not started up, it was being led by Petrus van Hemelrijk, and then he married Johanna Hanssens, and that's how the name Hanssens got tied to brewing in general, and that was in 1837 already. So since 1837 the name Hanssens was tied to the Hooghuis or High House brewery, and their oldest son Jozef van Hemelrijk continued the tradition, but he fell ill in 1888, and not having any offspring, or not any offspring of age, they gave the brewery to Bartholomew Hanssen, Johanna's nephew. They had some kind of agreement that after 9 years, so they had a 9-year lease, after 9 years, when Joseph's son was old enough, Bartholomew would give the brewery back to the Van Hemelrijk family. But business was going very strong, and Bartholomew really liked it, and he never gave the brewery back. Now, of course, it wasn't just his decision, so he got fired, they got into a huge family quarrel, and Bartholomew wanted to keep on brewing, so he moved to Dorp. In 1896 he bought an old farm and repurposed it as a brewery, and that's where they still are located right now. So Van Hemelrijk and Hanssen have nothing to do with each other anymore, and Hanssen since 1896 was a brewery on itself. Now, originally Bartholomew didn't know much about the brewing or blending of lambic, so they brewed a brown table beer called the Walse Bruine, or Walloon Brown, and business was going very strong for Bartholomew, and he was very influential back in the days. In 1914 he even became mayor of Dorp, and he stayed on until 1927. Of course, 1914 World War I began, and most breweries, and this brewery was one of those, saw their copper kettles being confiscated by the Germans to melt down as bullets and whatnot. And in 1918 Bartholomew decides not to restart the brewery, but to turn it into a blendery. He didn't want new kettles and all that, so he started blending lambic, as we've heard before in the Tilquin story. It was a very common practice, and in 1928, so 10 years later, his son Theo took over, and he learned the blending craft at age 14 already, so he was ready to take over in a heartbeat. In 1932 Theo married Rosa Vastio, and he changed his name to Theo Hanssen Vastio, THV, and that is still the marking on the barrels in the brewery this day, or in the blendery to this day. The THV is still on every barrel that they ripen in. Alright, back in those days they bought lambic or wort to mature as lambic and blend as geuse from several breweries, and I'm gonna name a few and you'll see that except for one, none of them survived. I'll have to cheat here, but they bought wort from Van Halen Koch, La Fleur d'Or, Wierings, where Theo also learned the trade, and Timmermans. And after World War II, a second round of copper confiscation, only Timmermans survived. And we will see them later on this week, as we also have a Timmermans Old Gueuze. So after World War II, practically all of their suppliers were closed down or rebuilding their breweries, and they had to change suppliers. And then they came out with Lindemans, also a name that we will see this week or next week, and Girardin. And you will have heard that name in the Tilquin video. And since 1990, so not that long ago, brewery Bohm, the godfather of Gueuze brewing, also supplied wort for Hanssen. Then in 1974, Theo's son Jean took over, and the market was already shrinking. The Gueuze and lambic market, even today, it's in an uprising, but it's still not a very big market, and it's very local. It's mainly in Belgium and some export to Japan and the USA, but yeah, it's still a small market. It's growing, and I hope it keeps growing for a while because it's very lovely. But I did hear or read Jean being quoted saying "De Geuze is kapot," and that's actually Brussels dialect for "De Geuze is dead." It's all dying. It's broken. Anywho, in 1997, Jean retires, or he came of age and wanted to retire, but he didn't have any succession. He had a son and a daughter, but they had absolutely no interest in the brewing world, mainly because it's such a small world, the Gueuze brewing. So they had their own jobs, and the Hanssen brewery would be closed down. Jean started working up his stock, and Hanssen would be discontinued 2 or 3 years later on. Now in 1998, his daughter Sidi suddenly did take interest, and she thought it was a damn shame that the name would disappear from this brewing world. So Sidi and her husband John took over. Only being a small brewery in a small segment of the brewing world, they still have their regular day jobs to make a living, and they have the brewery or the blendery on the side. Nonetheless, they are still doing it, and therefore I have the chance to taste another Hanssens Artisanaal Old Gueuze today. So let's taste it. Another 37.5 centiliter bottle with an old parchment label, champagne cork, very, very traditional all. Blend of the finest lambic, 100% ripened on oak barrels, spontaneous re-fermentation in the bottle. All right. Need a glass as well. Yes, that's very sharp. Brewery Hanssens Artisanaal in Dworp. Another branded cork. And there we go. Not too much carbonation in there. It also opened up with a very soft pft instead of a not too much yeast. There it is. There's that carbonation. Yet no more than half a centimeter of foam. It's rather white or off-white foam. And right off the bat, I smell a bunch of aromas, but the main keywords here are hay, horses, like the old woolly blankets, yeah, straw, a bit old, oaky, and sharp and sour. It has such tiny bubbles that they're almost invisible, and the foam already dissipated. It's already gone. So, time to taste. Yeah. Just as I remember, it's actually an odd combination of sharp and sour, but rather soft and flat as well. Flat because of the lack of carbonation, and I say lack of carbonation, but I mean the initial mouthfeel isn't very carbonated, but you do feel the carbonation like in the roof of your mouth and in the back of your throat. That's where it really comes up. And it's a sharp sour taste, a tart taste, but it's not aggressive. And because the carbonation is in the back, is very tiny, it's a very balanced, very soft beer actually. The aftertaste is rather sweet. I get more of a lemony hint. It's actually more like a lemonade-like aftertaste. And when I say lemonade, I mean the fresh kind your grandma makes, and not the sugary stuff you buy at the store. Yeah, for me this is one of the more complex, yet one of the better Gueuze, Old Gueuze blends. And I would actually recommend this to people that aren't very familiar with Gueuze or don't really like Gueuze, just like they did to me. I think because it's very balanced and rather soft and not highly carbonated, this is the ideal gateway Gueuze. Yeah. And however soft it is, still works on these muscles here. Alright, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you guys want to know more, if you guys taste it yourself or you have any questions, put them in the comments. If you like this video, like. Think about subscribing if you want to see the next videos. Yeah, we still have, I believe, 5 Old Gueuzes from the Toer de Geuze. Then I'll have another unboxing, and I'll talk about one particular brewery for about a week, and then we'll dive into the rest of the Belgian beer world again. So subscribe, hit the bell icon, then you'll be notified, and I'll see you guys next time in the next video. Cheers you guys.